In this series, I'm going to be reacting to the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read it a while back, maybe 15 years ago, and I thought I'd revisit it with a skeptical eye. Shall we dive in?
When I downloaded this book, I noticed that there were a few different versions of them, all of them apparently unauthorized. Because you've got this version, which is the one that we're going to look at, looks pretty normal so far, right? But there's also this version, which is, it's almost the same, except it's got this weird thing at the top of every page that says, who controls the past, controls the future. Who controls the present, controls the past. Which, if I'm not mistaken, is the slogan of the party in the book 1984. And it's at the top of every page. See? Every page, right at the top, it says, who controls the past, controls the future. It's kind of spooky. So we're not going to be reading that one. We're going to be reading the more standard version, although there are still some kind of funny things in it. If you purchase this book without a cover, or purchase a PDF, JPEG, or TIFF copy of this book, it is likely stolen property or a counterfeit. In that case, neither the authors, the publisher, nor any of their employees or agents has received any payment for the copy. Don't you care about the employees and the authors? Well, this author has lots of money already, and there is no chance that any of their employees were going to make money off individually sold copies of this book anyway. Furthermore, counterfeiting is a known avenue of financial support for organized crime and terrorist groups. Now that is spooky, and I'm sure it's not true. Look at all these books Robert Kiyosaki has written. I mean, Rich Dad, Poor Dad was the first one, but there's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Rich Dad's Cash Flow Quadrant, Rich Dad's Guide to Investing, Rich Dad's Rich Kid, Smart Kid, Rich Dad's Retire. Yeah, there's like a dozen or 24 books here. I thought he made all his money investing. Let's read, shall we? I had two fathers, a rich one and a poor one. One was highly educated and intelligent. He had a PhD and completed 4 years of undergraduate work in less than 2 years. He then went on to Stanford University, the University of Chicago, and Northwestern University to do his advanced studies, all on full financial scholarships. The other father never finished the 8th grade. Both men were successful in their careers, working hard all their lives. Both earned substantial incomes, yet one always struggled financially. The other would become one of the richest men in Hawaii. One died leaving tens of millions of dollars to his family, charities, and his church. The other left bills to be paid. So right off the bat, I noticed certain things that I didn't notice when I first read it, like 15 years ago or whenever that was. And I think the most obvious problem to start off is that we have people with tens of millions of dollars that they obviously don't need when they're alive because they didn't even spend it. Like even if you were going to spend it on like a water fountain of a statue of you peeing, like you still have tens of millions of dollars left, and people in the same, presumably, who know about each other. I mean, we're talking about like this guy's two dads, people who know about each other. One of them is poor. So what they're saying is someone with tens of millions of dollars, for one reason or another, couldn't be bothered to help out the guy who's struggling financially, who's struggling to pay his bills. He's like, well, I'm smart. I earned this money, so it's my money. So, I'm not giving it to you. Like we don't see any problem at all so far. And besides, this is all because of the financial system. So it should raise questions about that system. I mean, Kiyosaki talks like a little bit kind of vaguely in this book about the system and how it works, but he doesn't engage with it. And he doesn't, like, he has some mild criticism for it, but basically he's saying that, like, because you can use it to get rich, it's a good system. When really we should be looking at, like, why someone is struggling financially and not just pin it on, like, no knowledge of accounting or something like that. And that's kind of what he does, and that's what all conservatives do, of course, don't they? That they say, like, the reason that people are poor is because they just don't understand budgeting and accounting and stuff. And A, that's totally untrue and unfair and blaming the victim. But B, even if it was true, it would go to show what a shitty system we have. But no, it's not true, because you can't just budget and manage your way out of homelessness or out of poverty. Like, it just doesn't work that way. And people who say that just don't, they don't have any experience with that kind of thing, and they don't care. All right, let's keep going. Both men were strong, charismatic, and influential. Both men offered me advice, but they did not advise the same things. Both men believed strongly in education, but didn't recommend the same course of study. If I had only had one dad, I would have had to accept or reject his advice. Having two dads offered me the choice of contrasting points of view, one of a rich man and one of a poor man. Yeah, I mean, no shade. It's great to, especially when growing up, to have a couple of different points of view that you can accept or reject or evaluate against each other. Really, he should have had more than two. Again, I'm wondering what it is about our society that it's acceptable to only offer one point of view to a child growing up. And which tends to be the state's point of view, or the point of view of the propaganda. But parents have some influence as well. They might have a bit of influence too, right? If there's two dads, yeah, great. You can evaluate their advice more critically. Well, really, you should have been going to more people. What about a radical dad? Instead of simply accepting or rejecting one or the other, I found myself thinking more, comparing, and then choosing for myself. The problem was that the rich man wasn't rich yet, and the poor man wasn't poor. Both were just starting out on their careers, and both were struggling with money and families, but they had very different points of view about money. For example, one dad would say, "The love of money is the root of all evil." And the other said, "The lack of money is the root of all evil." And I would say that they're both wrong, personally. I mean, I'm not big on this root of all evil thing. I don't think we should be looking for the root of all evil. It's like, I mean, it's our brains, probably, is the root of all evil. So let's not just get rid of brains. But I think if you're going to talk about money, then money itself is the problem. Money itself. Not love of money, not lack of money, the existence of money. Because if there were no money, then we would simply, have stuff. If you need something, then you would just go get it. You wouldn't think, like, how can I afford it? Like, there's tons of food in the world, but you're only allowed the food if you pay, and you're only allowed to have money if, you work, or, and you inherited it or something like that. And you're only allowed to have it if you choose to buy food over something else that you might need. A lot of people have to make that choice every day, and it's because of the existence of money. It has nothing to do with, like, you could say the love of money is the root of all evil, but you don't have to love money to have lots of it, you know? The lack of money is the root of all evil. Okay, so what? All of the people who don't have money are committing evil or ready to commit evil? Well, it sounds like they're blaming the victims again. You know, rich dad is like, oh well, of course they're evil. They don't have money. They don't have enough money. Maybe they don't have enough money. Maybe they disagree with who should have the money. That kind of thing. No, it's none of that. It's the system itself that forces everything to be commodified, that forces everything to be subject to the market instead of just, sharing things with people who need them. So it's neither of those things. And that's why you need a rad dad instead of just a poor and a rich one. All right, where are we? As a young boy, having two strong fathers both influencing me was difficult. I wanted to be a good son and listen, but the two fathers didn't say the same things. The contrast in their points of view, particularly about money, was so extreme that I grew curious and intrigued. I began to start thinking for long periods of time about what each was saying. Much of my private time was spent reflecting, asking myself questions such as, why does he say that? And then asking the same question of the other dad's statement. Yeah, see, that's actually a great way to do it. It sounds like Robert learned critical thinking at a young age, so that's pretty cool. Critical thinking doesn't save you if you're stuck in within a paradigm like making money. Making money is the root of happiness. It would have been much easier to simply say, yeah, he's right, I agree with that. Or to simply reject the point of view by saying, the old man doesn't know what he's talking about. Instead, having two dads whom I loved forced me to think and ultimately choose a way of thinking for myself. As a process, choosing for myself turned out to be much more valuable in the long run than simply accepting or rejecting a single point of view. Yeah, well, it does. That's how you learn critical thinking. You evaluate things. You choose for yourself, and you don't have to always, you don't have to stick with what you've chosen for the rest of your life. One of the reasons the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and the middle class struggles in debt is that the subject of money is taught at home, not in school. Okay, so this is one of those arguments that, like all liberal arguments, it rests on the assumption that the system is basically okay the way it is. We just need, more education or more knowledge, and that's all. That's the problem. Not the system itself. We just need to understand money. If you just understood money better, we'd all be rich. Which is silly because that's impossible. Not everyone could be rich. In fact, the simplest answer to this, and of course I've made lots of videos on this, but really, the reason the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and the middle class struggle in debt is because that's the way the system works. I know it's kind of, you might say it's a circular argument, right? But the fact is, this is what the system demands. This is what it produces. The rich get richer because the system works for them. You can always, just buy more land and rent it out to more people, maybe, or buy up more businesses and just own more and more. And there's reasons. The system is just the reason that power and money just keep getting concentrated in fewer and fewer hands. More and more people are going to be this middle class struggling in debt, and then eventually the poor who get poorer if we don't fight back against this system. Most of us learn about money from our parents. Well, the schools didn't know any more than my parents did. So what can poor parents tell their child about money? They simply say, stay in school and study hard. The child may graduate with excellent grades, but with a poor person's financial programming and mindset. Well, that's true. Sadly, money is not taught in schools. Schools focus on scholastic and professional skills, but not on financial skills. Well, yeah. I mean, this is another place where you could break out a systemic critique of the school system, which of course I have, as you know, if you've been here long enough. I talk a lot about school, but just teaching money in the same kinds of schools without changing anything else about the structure of school is not really going to get you anywhere. What would it really change? For a little while, I volunteered with Junior Achievement, which is like a kind of organization that teaches those things. It teaches things like budgeting, how to manage, I don't know, how to manage your money. I mean, kind of just these basics of debt, that kind of thing. But it's not like that led the students. I think they were high school students. That didn't just lead them into money and career success, because that's not how it works. You don't just know how money works and then make money. In fact, you don't really have to understand how money works, because you could just say start your own business. You can get advisors and stuff to help you with that kind of thing. You don't school. What school has always done is just reinforce class distinctions. So probably the richer schools will get really good financial education, and they'll practice running businesses and stuff like that. Whereas, the poor people will just learn things like budgeting, which they're forced to learn anyway when they get money, because that's the only way they'll survive. So where were we? Schools focus on scholastic and professional skills, but not on financial skills. This explains how smart bankers, doctors, and accountants who earn excellent grades may struggle financially all their lives. Well, yeah, it sort of does. But this next line is just ridiculous. Our staggering national debt is due in large part to highly educated politicians and government officials making financial decisions with little or no training in the subject of money. No. Wrong. Absolutely not. Not even close. The problem is we're talking about two completely different things. They cannot be compared. The household and how money comes in and out of a household is totally different from a government. Governments, states, we're going to call them states. States, I mean, it's not their own money. Imagine if in a household you went into debt because you were spending all of your money trying to tell people how great you are. If the only thing you were spending money on, or the main thing maybe, or just spending a large portion of your budget, you were spending on trying to look good, trying to make everyone else believe that you were spending your money correctly. That's kind of how the government works. The more money a government spends, the more it expands its power. In what way is that parallel to bankers, doctors, and accountants struggling financially? It's not. They're not related. There's nothing to do with it. And nothing to do with making financial decisions. If you work for the state, you can just get more money. They don't need training in the subject of money. They just need to know that if they spend more money, more people will support them. That's it. So why would you put those two things together? All right. Today, I often wonder what will soon happen when we have millions of people who need financial and medical assistance. What? Soon? Will? Soon? There's always been that. Certainly when he wrote this book, there those people were there. You just can't see them? Is that it? They'll be dependent upon their families or the government for financial support. Well, yeah, they depend on the people who have money, who have all the money. Right, that's right. That's because we're forced to use money for everything. What will happen when Medicare and Social Security run out of money? How will a nation survive if teaching children about money continues to be left with parents, most of whom will be already poor? Like, I kind of think poor people could teach more about money, because poor people actually understand what it means to have very little money, to make those essential choices. Someone with tens of millions of dollars, like, their choices are very different, but they don't have worries. You know, what are your worries? Like, if you've got tens of millions of dollars. Because I had two influential fathers, I learned from both of them. I had to think about each dad's advice, and in doing so, I gained valuable insight into the power and effect of one's thoughts on one's life. For example, one dad had a habit of saying, "I can't afford it." The other dad forbade these words to be used. He insisted I asked, "How can I afford it?" One is a statement, and the other is a question. Yeah, again, like, if we're talking about rich and poor people, then, like, in many cases, rich people really can't afford it. I mean, it's great, again, to talk. It's great to talk about, like, priorities. When, where is your priority for your money? But, like, most things, if you're poor, you can't afford. If you're on a budget, like, it's strict usually for most people. If your question is, how can I afford it? And it sounds like you can just get some money somehow. I'll just get money, sounds like kids, Well, grown-ups can always get money when they want it, can't they? You just get money. How can I afford it? So I want a nice big house. How can I afford it? Well, I can't. One lets you off the hook and the other forces you to think. Yeah, like, think and be creative. Great. If there's any chance you can afford it, then go ahead and think. My soon-to-be rich dad would explain that by automatically saying the words, "I can't afford it," your brain stops working. By asking the question, "How can I afford it?" your brain is put to work. Yeah, and I mean, this is all true as far as it goes. In fact, a lot of what he says in this book is, like, reasonably good financial advice for somebody who, like, wants to start off as an investor or something like that. But I personally am asking different questions. I don't ask, like, how can I afford it? I want to know how it can be made accessible to everybody. So that way, I'm still putting my brain to work, but I'm not purely focused on myself. And hey, maybe I should be. Maybe, I don't know, maybe my finances are in ruin. I don't know. I mean, they're not, but what if they were? But then it would be an even more urgent question, wouldn't it? Because if I was poor, that's exactly what I would want. I would want something to be accessible to everybody, because that would include me. He didn't mean that you should buy everything you want. He was fanatical about exercising your mind, the most powerful computer in the world. Well, this was made in the 1990s. He'd say, "My brain gets stronger every day because I exercise it." That's true. That's all true. Pretty sure psychologists have found that your brain does get better if you use it in the ways that, the ways that you use it. That makes it better, makes it stronger. It's like exercise. The stronger it gets, the more money I can make. All right. He believed that automatically saying, "I can't afford it," was a sign of mental laziness. Yeah, I notice a lot of signs of mental laziness. I get rejected. A lot of these ideas get rejected immediately because it's not about me, it's about us, they go, no, I'm back to thinking, how can I afford it? That's all I care about. There's a lot of mental laziness. Although both dads worked hard, I noticed that one had a habit of putting his brain to sleep when it came to finances, and the other had a habit of exercising his brain. The long-term result was that one dad grew stronger financially and the other grew weaker. It's not much different from a person who goes to the gym to exercise on a regular basis versus someone who sits on the couch watching television. Proper physical exercise increases your chances for health, and proper mental exercises increases your chances for wealth. I mean, that's basically true. Again, insofar as it goes, it's basically true. My two dads had opposing attitudes, and that affected the way they thought. One dad thought that the rich should pay more in taxes to take care of those less fortunate. The other said, taxes punish those who produce and reward those who don't produce. Well, once again, I disagree with both dads. The poor dad thinks the rich should pay more in taxes to take care of those less fortunate. If you've seen my video on how to tax the rich, you know I disagree with that sentiment, because the state works for the rich. If you tax the rich, you've now got a stronger state. And that stronger state will be able to do even more to give back to the rich. So no, I'm not in favor of higher taxes. Besides, these people seem to have this fantasy that, like, if you just raise taxes on the rich, then they would, the government would just give all that money to the poor or to hospitals or education or something. And of course it wouldn't, because we already know just by looking at budgets where their priorities are. They prioritize military spending and and the police and stuff like, and prisons and stuff like that. Those are budget priorities. So if you're saying that they should have more money, then they're going to do more of all those things. They're certainly not going to just give it to the poor just because you want them to. The other said, taxes punish those who produce and reward those who don't produce. Yeah, right. That's what they do. I mean, there's just no reason to think that. Punish people who produce? No. Everybody has to pay taxes. Everybody. I don't care who you are. There's another weird thing people have about taxes, that they think income tax is the only tax. And so, if you're paying a lot in income tax, you're the one who's highly taxed. No. Sorry, that's not how it works. If you know anything about taxes, there are plenty more taxes than income tax. There's all kinds of sales taxes, and poor people have to pay them. Poor people are the main victims of even the most basic taxes. And since it all goes to the government, they're the permanent victims of it. One dad recommended, study hard so you can find a good company to work for. The other recommended, study hard so you can find a good company to buy. Yeah, again, I mean, we're talking about people in two completely different boats. Most people can't just buy companies. So obviously, if you have tons of money, yeah, study hard so you can find a good company to buy. I mean, yeah, rich people already do that. But you can't do that if you're poor. You can't just study hard so you can find a good company to buy. You have to find a company to work for. And you have to accept whatever wages they tell you to accept. One dad said, the reason I'm not rich is because I have you kids. The other said, the reason I must be rich is because I have you kids. Yeah, whatever. Whatever that's supposed to mean. I mean, kids do cost a hell of a lot of money. Although it's certainly not the reason someone is or isn't rich. I mean, again, they're not related. They're two different things. I mean, yeah, kids cost a lot of money. But they don't prevent you from being rich, because rich people have millions or billions of dollars they can afford to have kids. One encouraged talking about money and business at the dinner table, while the other forbade the subject of money to be discussed over a meal. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's reasons. I made a video kind of on this as well. I think one reason you would forbid the subject of money is because there's some controversy about it, right? And besides, you don't want to talk business at what might be the only chance you even get in a day to see your family and your kids, right? But whatever. The other one encouraged talking about money and business, so that's cool. I just wish I had been there too, and things would really have let fly. One said, when it comes to money, play it safe. Don't take risks. The other said, learn to manage risk. Well, frankly, just existing in a world of money is the risk. That's the risk. When you're, they say like, don't take risks. What they mean is don't take foolish risks with your money and throw it away. Learn to manage risk. I mean, that's all fine, but learning to manage risk has a lot to do with like hedging. And if you don't have lots and lots of money, then you can't hedge. But anyway, I agree. One believed, our home is our largest investment and our greatest asset. The other believed, my house is a liability, and if your house is your largest investment, you're in trouble. Both dads paid their bills on time, yet one paid his bills first, while the other paid his last. I know that's confusing, but they explain what it is later. One dad believed in a company or the government taking care of you and your needs. Okay, well, so, this is obviously poor dad, but, that is really naive, isn't it? That's the liberal mindset. That's just, it's not that he's poor per se. It's that's what the propaganda wants us to think anyway. That, the company, you're supposed to work for a company, that's where you get your money from, and that any other needs you or people who can't work have, the government will take care of you. And we just kind of leave it at that. But that's really not how it works. I hope we know this by now. It doesn't make any sense. He was always concerned about pay raises, retirement plans, medical benefits, sick leave, vacation days, and other perks, as he should be. And there's millions of people who should be unionizing because they should care about those things too. He was impressed with two of his uncles who joined the military. Yeah, so impressive. And earned a retirement and entitlement package for life after 20 years of active service. He loved the idea of medical benefits and PX privileges. I don't even know what that is. The military provided its retirees. Well, yeah, see? He's pointing out why poor people go into the military. And, you can't just, again, not everyone can get rich. So yeah, of course, as long as the military says, like, yeah, we give you all these awesome benefits, and you can go to college so you can get a real job, like they believe in that kind of nonsense. He also loved the tenure system available through the university. Yeah, exactly. It's a job for life. But tenure, it keeps other people out. It's just, well, anyway, there's a lot to be said about that. The idea of job protection for life and job benefits seemed more important at times than the job. Yes, because they need the money and they need to survive and they need to retire. Yes, it is more important. The job isn't important at all. If you really liked the job, it probably wouldn't be a job. You'd just be doing it. There are very few jobs that like people just love unconditionally and they would do, even if they didn't need the money. So of course it's more important than the job. The point of the job is the money and the benefits. You only get a job because you're not rich, because you can't just manage your way out of poverty. He would often say, I've worked hard for the government and I'm entitled to these benefits. Well, your working hard doesn't entitle you to anything, as I think is proven every day. The other believed in total financial self-reliance. He spoke out against the entitlement mentality and how it created weak and financially needy people. He was emphatic about being financially competent. I mean, I know this isn't Kiyosaki saying it. It's him, saying what his rich dad said. And every so often he'll say, well, I didn't agree with everything he said. But, I mean, come on. Total financial self-reliance. Well, as we know from the first page of this book, what that means is he thinks he should just become totally rich. Any amount of money is fine, tens of millions of dollars, and that everybody else can fuck off. What, you don't have enough money to buy yourself a mansion, a yacht, and a swimming pool? Oh, well, I guess you're weak and financially needy. And it's all because of the government and welfare programs. That's the only reason. Not because I've got tens of millions of dollars that I'm just sitting on, Nothing to do with that. Like, it goes to show that the rich dad didn't understand the economy either. He didn't seem to understand that his wealth depends and has been created entirely by poor people. Wealthy people get rich on the backs of poor people. That's how it works. It pretty much has to be, unless they inherited it or something. And because they've got all the money, and because everything costs money, and of course prices are even going up now. Prices are rapidly rising now. So the rich can keep making as much money as they want, and the poor have to spend more and more of their money, which isn't going up, right? Their wages are stagnating, and they're always lagging way behind inflation, the rise of prices. I mean, the fact is, wealth is created by poor people, and if everybody was rich, then nobody would be working for Rich Dad, and he'd have to pay them $1 million or something. One dad struggled to save a few dollars. The other created investments, because he already has millions of dollars. If one dad is struggling to save a few dollars, then obviously he can't create investments. He doesn't have enough money. He's only got a few bucks. One dad taught me how to write an impressive resume so I could find a good job. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's cool, although that is the kind of thing they do in school. And in fact, even that, you don't even need to learn it in school. Just, Google it. How to write a resume. The other taught me how to write strong business and financial plans so I could create jobs. Oh, he actually said create jobs. Yeah, sure. Okay, so, I mean, that's one of the kind of thing that requires a whole video in itself. But, I mean, and he's going to say it again, like, he's going to say that the rich create jobs, which is in effect true. But what they're doing is, again, they're saying, like, I've got all this money. If you want to survive, you're going to have to do everything I say. My schedule, do everything I want you to do. And that means you can be fired at any time. And I can just take that source of income away if I feel like. So that's kind of what it means to create jobs. You take all the money, and then, so you're so benign. You so benignly create jobs to make yourself richer because you can't bear the idea of like giving away any of your money, reducing the size of your pile. That would make you like less successful or something. So obviously, give a little bit of money, as little as possible to the poor to make you richer. Yeah, wow, so benign, creating jobs, they're so awesome. Being a product of two strong dads allowed me the luxury of observing the effects different thoughts have on one's life. I noticed that people really do shape their lives through their thoughts. For example, my poor dad always said, "Oh, I'll never be rich." And that prophecy became a reality. My rich dad, on the other hand, always referred to himself as rich. He would say things like, "I'm a rich man and rich people don't do this." Even when he was flat broke after a major financial setback, he continued to refer to himself as a rich man. He would cover himself by saying, "There's a difference between being poor and being broke. Broke is temporary, poor is eternal." Okay, but poor isn't just a mindset. It's eternal because it's almost impossible to find your way out. Because people like you have all the money. My poor dad would say, "I'm not interested in money," or "Money doesn't matter." My rich dad always said, "Money is power." Well, I mean, that part's true. Money is power. That part's correct. Saying money doesn't matter is a bit like saying politics doesn't matter. You personally don't care about it, but it does shape your life either way.
I won't do the whole book in one sitting, so that should be good for today. Next time, we'll continue on from there with chapter 1.